Welcome to this show of the episode of 360 Degrees, where today we shine a spotlight on a groundbreaking event shaping the future of forensic science in Africa. So from September 23rd to 28th, 2024, Kigali, Rwanda will host the inaugural conference of the African Forensic Sciences Academy, a first of its kind gathering bringing together forensic experts, justice professionals, and innovators from across the continent under the theme Forensic Science Ecosystem in Africa Serving Justice. This event will not only discuss about advancements, but also seek solutions to justice challenges uniquely to Africa. Stay tuned as we go deeper into this subject and also look at what we will be discussing in this conference. Joining us today is Antonelle Olkers, the AFSA President. Welcome to RBA.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you doing?
Good. Wonderful always to be back in Kigali. Rwanda feels like my second home in Africa.
Yes. We welcome you to the studio and welcome you to this show where we're going to talk about this upcoming conference. First of all, can you deeply explain about this upcoming conference? What is the kind of this conference that is happening in Rwanda?
Yes, so next week we are fortunate enough to be hosting the the inaugural conference of the African Forensic Sciences Academy, which we founded in 2022, launched last year in 23 in Kigali. We are registered at the RGB as an international NGO, which also provides the independent oversight for us, and we are hosted by the Rwanda Forensic Institute. So for this conference, the Rwanda Forensic Institute, our hosts in Kigali, and AFSA, as we refer to the African Forensic Sciences Academy, AFSA, we have teamed up and are co-hosting this very first of its kind conference in Africa. So what's very important about the conference is the fact that the RFI is positioned to be a leader in forensic science in Africa, which is wonderful for us as AFSA to be associated. But then also the conference is about doing three things. We have a training program, so we have 2 days next week of Monday and Tuesday of in-depth workshops on various topics in forensic science. Then Wednesday to Friday, the 3 days are intense science sessions. We have 15 keynote speakers from Africa and the rest of the world, which is unheard of. And then on Saturday, we all participate in Umuganda because we wanted our conferences, since this is the first one, we are laying down the foundation for how the conferences will be in the future. So we also want a social responsibility segment as part of the conference. So therefore, excuse me, we are saying the conference runs from Monday to Saturday. It doesn't usually happen like that for conferences, but in Africa, we decided as AFSA that that is what we need. We need the training component, we need the in-depth science component, but also as forensic science professionals, we can go to a country and leave something behind that is long-lasting in terms of community service.
Moving ahead about this shaping the future of forensic science, because it is all about the conference. What are some of the topics that you will be discussed during this conference that will last almost a week?
Yeah, so very important. Our theme, the forensic science ecosystem in Africa, encapsulates everything that happens in forensic science, and then that touches on our work from the crime scene up to where we deliver our results into court in a verbal form. So the topics then cover all of that. So we have topics such as how do we define what is the trace in forensic science? So the one item or particle or element that goes from hand to hand during the forensic science process. So we have defined that, and we are hosting a workshop about that. And the original scientific paper, which your readers might not be interested in, but the original scientific paper was written by Professor Claude Roux and Professor Michel Miranda and co-authors, and they are here to present that because we have adopted that definition. So we're talking about the trace. Then Prof. Mehdi Ben Kilal, who is our vice president, and I'm the president, the two of us are co-hosting a forensic science ecosystem workshop. Then we have workshops ranging from toxicology to digital evidence to a section on how to publish our research, because as Africans we are not publishing our research because we are so service driven, and that is changing, and we want to galvanize that to the tipping point where it changes. Also to help young professionals to cope with the stresses of working as a forensic scientist. You can imagine in our entire ecosystem, there are people think it is usually the crime scene, the police, the forensic science, and the courts. But practicing as a forensic scientist, mental health is one of the key issues that we often do not pay attention to, which we want to highlight during the conference. And dare I say on air that interacting with the press is key, because we have realized that it's not us speaking to the people of Africa, to the citizens of Africa, it is you. And thank you for the opportunity then that you are giving AFSA to do that. So these, I call it hidden or often forgotten aspects of our ecosystem. You, the fact that you are talking to me today, you are now, the RBA is now part of the system, ecosystem, because you are bringing our message to the people of Rwanda and beyond. So there are many, many topics. There's one that is really key, and it's called frugal forensics. And I think we as Africans have learned to do much with less than what the rest of the world have. And as it now turns out that resources around the globe are being depleted. So now the rest of the world is turning to Africa to see how innovative have we been, because we have found solutions for things that is costing them many, many, many dollars, and we do it for next to nothing. So now frugal forensics is rising to the top. So the entire world is now looking to Africa for a solution, which I think is fitting. I feel Africa should be leading the world.
Yes. Going back to the theme, as you said, forensic science ecosystem in Africa is serving justice. Could you a little bit join the two things? Justice, the judicial system, but also the forensic science. How does these two connect, and how does one help the other being served?
That is a very good question. So forensic scientists, we are usually working in a laboratory or working independently to analyze the results that comes from our laboratory tests, but we get the samples from the people at the crime scene, which are usually in the police, RIB in Rwanda, for instance. So it can also come from other places, but mainly that. So then it comes to the forensic science laboratory. So then we have to deliver a service where we not only analyze the results, but we also interpret it. So that is a high-level skill, and we have to upskill ourselves all the time. But then we are not the ones who is making the case in the court. Advocates and attorneys, so the legal professionals consult with us before the time, and then they are the ones to speak in court. Yes, they do call us as expert witnesses, and then we have I always say we have one job in court, and that is to assist the court. I work as an independent expert, but it doesn't matter who calls me. If the state calls me or the defense calls me, your testimony doesn't change, because it's hard scientific facts that it's based on. So in that way, forensic sciences then serve justice, because we are interacting with the legal professionals who then argue their case in court. And then what happens in the ultimate decision by a judge is, I don't want to say it's not important, it's critically important, because they have to apply their minds, taking the law and the forensic science results into account. But as a forensic scientist, once I have testified, the case is out of my hand. Testified and then being cross-examined. So there's a very, very strong link between forensic sciences and the justice sector. So across Africa, what often happens is this becomes one of the gaps, because as a scientist, I have no legal training. And as a legal professional, often they have no scientific training. So we have to like educate each other during a court case. And so me and many other people in Africa have developed hardcore, strong training programs where we reach out to the legal professionals. I'm a great believer in if something is wrong, you don't just sit back and wait for somebody to fix it. You jump in and you do it. And so I've trained many forensic scientists across Africa, legal professionals mostly in Southern Africa, but to deal effectively with DNA evidence, which is my field, DNA, in court, so that we don't block the court rolls up and there's no backlog then when it comes to the court. So we work very close hand in hand with the legal profession so that justice can be served.
Yes. Coming back to the conference that will start on the 23rd to the 28th, it is the first of its kind. Why did you choose Rwanda to host it?
Very good question. I'm so glad you asked that. At the founding meeting, which was actually held in South Africa on the 15th of December 2022, there were forensic science experts from across the globe, from across Africa. People that we invited because we wanted all fields to be representative and so on. So we started at the conference and we had to make a few decisions. One is we had to define forensic sciences, we had to define African, we had to define academy. So then one of the key issues was where are we going to host, where is our office going to be? And so there were 3 countries that had a case and they made their case. And after everybody spoke, I said it's important that we keep core principles in mind. So before the discussion gets too wide, we have to define a few things as Africans. Number 1, we need this academy wherever the office is. Any African should easily be able to get to the office, which immediately disqualifies some countries. It's the reality. Rwanda, however, His Excellency, your President, said that no African should pay a cent to enter Rwanda, and so the visas are not an issue. So that's one reason. The second core principle we defined was that there must be ease of doing business. So we wanted a government that is effective, another tick box for Rwanda. We also wanted to be hosted in a body that is forward-thinking, with vision, with ambition to be innovative, etc. The RFI fits that to a T because of the visionary leadership of its DG, Dr. Charles Karangwa. And then your minister, Dr. Emmanuel Ugrashibuja, is incredibly visionary in his vision of where forensic science and the law should meet. So then also it was key, at the meeting it was discussed, that people would not travel to a country where it is not safe. So that leaves very few countries where people can feel truly safe. And again, Rwanda is an obvious example, and I can go on and on, but those are the key issues that we looked at. And then for us, it was also very important that there be a body where we could register. We ultimately registered at the RGB, which provides independent oversight for us, but that was very important for us, to be formally registered, because there's been many other forensic bodies, societies, so on, in Africa, but we are the very first, apart from other countries, but across Africa, so working across Africa in all fields of forensic science, we are the very first body, so the very first academy, to be formally registered, to have independent oversight, and all of that we could find within Rwanda with ease.
Coming back to this, you mentioned about traveling participants coming to this conference, coming freely, the visa-free entry. How many participants from different parts of the world are expected to attend the conference?
So at this point, there are delegates coming to our conference of 24 African countries, which as you know, I as an African can just show my passport and walk through. Then there are so that's 24 countries. That's significant of the 54. And then we have representatives from 23 countries outside of Africa. So that's 47 countries around the world. So for the top experts in the field to come to Rwanda and for us to have that is significant, but they trust the RFI, they trust Rwanda, they trust AFSA. So we are very young, but we have built that trust. We are expecting between, I would say, probably 350 to 500. We will see who pitches up and who not, because that's actually one of the problems in our field, is that there could be a disaster tomorrow and 50 of the delegates cannot pitch up because they have to be at the crime scene. But we are expecting to have realistically probably 350 to 450 we will on the day see. And so we're also keeping a little bit of the good news behind, to ourselves at this point.
We're speaking about forensic science, but also justice. But let me come back to the RFI. How are you working with the RFI to make this happen, but also to serve the justice that we are speaking about? Yes, there is the conference, but there are also lessons being learned through the discussions that you have to see how to progress and give justice to people. How are you working with RFI?
Yeah, so the RFI has, as you may know, a few years ago they were known as the Rwanda Forensic Laboratory, peer service-driven, etc. Dr. Charles Karangwa transformed it into an institute. So what an institute includes is not only service delivery arm, but also a society servicing arm, a training arm, etc. So a true research, etc. So it's a true institute. So AFSA, that for us was ideal then to partner with the RFI. So we are going to work, we are working together to enhance that. So for instance, AFSA will coordinate training efforts. The RFI, is already benefiting from it with this conference. The fact that it's in Rwanda, everybody working at the RFI can attend, be upskilled, etc. So that works for both AFSA, because that is one of our key principles or key goals that we wish to attain. And so that will also then help the RFI. So being linked to AFSA is the RFI is always the first partner to know what we are doing, what are the needs of when we want to know what do forensic scientists need. The first point of contact for us is the RFI. Of course, we scan the whole of Africa, but that is the benefit that the RFI will get. Of course, also many countries wanted to host Africa because of not only the prestige, but the fact that it is a first. We have a new road to walk, and if they can be helpful with us to walk this road, it will also benefit them. May I just?
Yes. Go ahead.
I apologize. I must say this, that we are, although we work together with RFI, we are completely independent entities, as captured in the MOI, the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding between AFSA and the RFI. And this MOU, the RFI's line ministry is the Ministry of Justice, so therefore AFSA's line minister is also the Ministry of Justice. But our MOU is currently with the RFI, independent organizations.
So let's come back on the AFSA Academy, the African Forensic Sciences Academy. How long have you been working, and how far with the programs that you have, and how has it been benefiting the society at large?
Good question. You have good questions today. So AFSA was founded in December of 2022. In March 2023, last year, we incorporated and then launched. So we are months old. If we were a baby, we would hardly be crawling. So we have started. So then we had to sit down and think at the founding meeting, what can the first executive of AFSA attain? So the idea was that it's a 2-year executive cycle. The board that is elected next year will start the 3-year cycles. But for us as the interim executive, it's literally when you build a house, you pour the foundation, you make sure it's strong enough to have a 1-story, maybe in the future a 2-story, so that, and that was our task, to put up the structures, to get it registered, to get a bank. I won't name the bank because maybe that's not appropriate in Rwanda, but we have a very good Pan-African bank across Africa. They are in many countries. And so then at the founding meeting, we had to decide all of these things. And it was very important for us to, from day one, give, it's great to have a strategy, but a strategy actually means it's a piece of paper. It means nothing if there's no action. So we were then tasked to set up all of these structures, and I won't say we did everything we set out because it's ambitious. I mean, if you look at the American Academy, they are 75 years old. If you look at other academies around the world, they have existed for decades. So people often would say, yes, but Africa is then behind. Well, that's the reality. We are only starting now, but it's also an advantage that people don't often see. And that is we can learn from all the other academies and avoid the mistakes they made, but also make our own academy, which for me is critical. As an African, I don't want a carbon copy of anybody else's academy. I want it to be for us in Africa. So what we do is we set up then the structure, because that structure has to be strong enough to sustain AFSA in the future. So we have a constitution that is updated from time to time, and that AFSA must exist then to serve the interests of its professionals via which we serve justice. And so aspects such as training, career development, leadership training, leadership guidance, all of that in forensic science falls under our ambit. It's also important that there was no network before AFSA that spanned across Africa for all the fields in forensic science. So we are now that network. So a practical example of how AFSA has already benefited Africa and the citizens of Africa is as follows. Before the existence of Africa, there wasn't a single point of contact. That if there was a ballistic experts, and I'm really going to just use examples, and countries must please excuse me if they are named now, but if in country A, let me say, there's no ballistic expert. So often you would then generate a result, but you would need an independent view. And if there's only one or a few ballistic experts here, they may look for an independent one somewhere else. But how now to contact them? They are not we are not networked. So now they are contacting AFSA, and we are putting them in touch with another expert. This has been so successful in even just a few months that we exist, that some of the networks that we have made via AFSA, the countries are now training, I train your country in ballistics, you train my country in DNA. So that really benefits the justice system and serve justice to the citizens of Africa, just by having a simple network in place. So yes, we have big ambitions, but this is just in the few months that we have existed, the network that we have laid down. There's much work to be done. We have to scope across Africa exactly who is doing what, because nobody has done that before. And it's a task we took on ourselves, and there are other strategic projects that will come out over time.
Let's go a little bit back on the forensic science. We're speaking about the African Forensic Science Academy, which has been established recently. And I believe there were research made to establish this academy to see that it was needed. How far is forensic science in Africa?
So one of the reasons I was so passionate in being involved in starting AFSA was I would often go to international meetings and I would hear people speak and I would think, but I know of a ballistic expert or DNA expert that's actually better than that, or that that could have added value, let me not say better, but could have added value to this discussion. But Africa is not mentioned. So people would often say to me, oh, you're a forensic scientist, you work in Africa. How many other are there other forensic scientists? So, you know, at my age, you can see the gray. I just decided, me and like-minded people, so I started to talk with my colleagues saying, this is enough. We cannot wait for the world to give us a place. We have to step up and take the place. The place was always ours. We just didn't, we were so service-focused, we didn't step up to take the place. So now that we are organized, slowly, we can do that. For us, it's more important when you build the foundation of the house that it's strong than to build very high in the first year. So I always say it's great to move fast, but if you're moving in the wrong direction and you're moving fast, that's bad. So the interim executive that was chosen, that was elected, had to make sure that AFSA is moving in the right direction. And so that is where we started.
So let's go a little bit faster on the conference again. And when we speak of conferences, there are people coming from different sides of the continent and also in the world. How will this benefit the country, but also the academy, which has been recently established?
So the academy will benefit because there are many delegates coming, and the world top experts are arriving, so they can infuse us with their knowledge, but also as Africans, we can infuse them with our knowledge, one example was the frugal forensics. So that is how AFSA will benefit. Our members and our delegates will get to hear the top people in the world without having to travel to another international conference. They can hear it locally. And also they can hear our own experts speak and then highlight, so that we can highlight the expertise that we have in Africa. If we don't talk about the own stars that we have in forensic science in Africa, then that does not work for us all long term. So how it benefits the RFI is that the RFI is positioned to be a leader in forensic science in Africa. That is their ambition, and it's an attainable goal. And so getting the world's experts to Kigali means they all get to know each other. And so now if the RFI needs anything, they have already made a contact with the top expert in the world, or a group of the top experts in the world on a specific topic. So there's a huge advantage to hosting a conference or co-hosting a conference like this for the RFI.
This is the first conference, I mean, the first of its kind. Are you planning as AFSA to do this every year, or is it only after 2 years, depending?
So I wish I had concrete answers for all your questions. As I said, we are the interim executive. We are building the foundation. But currently the discussion is that we have an in-person conference every third year. It is not a trivial amount of money to travel to an international conference like this. And then the intervening 2 years, we can actually have it online. Fortunately, everybody is very used to that now. So, but yes, to get some event yearly, but also in between we can have workshops, we can have webinars, we can have networking sessions, and all of that we plan to have online.
So going a little bit back, the world is currently driven by technology. We cannot leave that behind, and it's going faster, and technology is shaping most of the sectors nowadays. How are you embracing technology as AFSA in your practices so that you can deliver justice? Because we are joining the forensic science, but also serving justice.
So AFSA then represents the members, the professionals working in forensic science. Africa has the top technology in the world. We are no second to anybody else. It is just a matter of we have to scale that and use it to its maximum capacity. And in AFSA itself, we are using digital platforms, etc., to communicate with our members, because doing so in person for a forensic scientist is impossible. You never know when you will be called to court. So we are embracing innovation and digital platforms and that. And if I may, I want to say a word of thanks to the ICT Chamber of Rwanda, who helped us get our first digital platform up and running. There are many people to thank in Rwanda. We couldn't have done it without many of our stakeholders in the ecosystem. But yes, so we use digital platforms and we use digital solutions as far as we can.
You spoke about innovations. What are some of the innovations that you're looking up to bring into this academy so that you can work a little bit smoother and also deliver good services to people that are looking for your services?
So the professionals that we represent, they deliver the service. We have their interests at heart, so we do what they need, provide the training or point them in the direction of where the training can be found. So the innovations in the laboratories will be, faster technology, bigger technology, quicker, AI-driven, etc. Some of it where it's appropriate. In AFSA, we are also using that. We are already using AI to do certain mundane tasks. But what is important is that we at least never uses it without disclaiming it. But we use innovations of digital platforms. There are still a few that must be put in place, but there are already a few in place. So for us, there's always a question of, can it be done better, quicker, with an innovative platform? And here I credit Christian Mugabu, who is our AFSA administrator in Kigali. He is a very bright young man with immense potential, who has instituted many of these platforms for us.
Going back to this conference, which will bring a big number of people here in Rwanda, how far with the preparations? Because when we speak of a conference, yes, we look at the topics that will be discussed, but there are also other aspects in terms of staying and everything. How far with the preparations?
So I will speak to that in a second, but I want to just take one step back and say, when you host a conference of this magnitude in our field, it is critical to have partners on board that can help you do certain things. I mean, I've traveled to Rwanda a couple of times before AFSA started, but having Rwanda as a partner, which was discussed at the founding meeting, means that there is a Rwanda Convention Bureau where we can knock on the door and say, I don't live here, I don't know how to do this. There's an OGS where you can say, can the DG of the RFI please contact the OGS and ask what is the correct protocol? There are so many of these organizations that are, Visit Rwanda has been incredible to us in social media profiles. So it's all of these people working very, very hard to make this a success. So how far are we in our preparations? The conference starts tomorrow. The conference starts tomorrow. I keep on saying the day after tomorrow. Yeah. The conference starts tomorrow with the workshops. That is all organized. The service provider that we have that's building the physical booths and stage stand and so on, they are already at the KCC where we are hosting this. And may I just say, what a venue. It's such an honor for AFSA to be able to host our inaugural conference there. It is just a phenomenal venue. Everybody has been incredibly helpful. So we are prepared in terms of the conference itself. The vendors coming, we're prepared. The delegates, we have now just recently put a very easy payment system in place, also online, so that people can easily transfer money with Momo money or cards or however. And then in terms of the hotels, so this is a key aspect in a conference. If something goes wrong in your hotel, your view changes of the conference. So again, very good that we chose Kigali and Rwanda because the hotels are superb. I mean, the Radisson is our keynote hotel where we are putting all the keynotes at. But there are many, many hotels in Kigali that I feel proud to say our delegates are staying there. So that infrastructure for hosting conferences was already in place. We can just literally benefit from all of that. And it's because you have visionary leadership in your country to put down all of this, to say, this is what we are going to do, and here are all the agencies that can help you. So when AFSA first discussed on having a conference, we were told, you don't have to worry about that, the RCB knows that, we don't have to worry about that, the RDB takes care of that, you don't have to worry this. So I've never been to a country where it is like this. It's amazing. And therefore, AFSA is honored to be hosted here.
Yes. We are speaking about advancing forensic science on the continent of Africa. And these professionals that are coming from around the continent, also around the world, they have expectations. How are you working to ensure that they gain something in this AFSA 2024?
So they have expectations. We hope to give them more than that, what they'd expect. We on the IE, on the executive, we will be very pleased if they get what they asked for or what they think they're going to get. Our aim is, of course, I should say it very softly, but to deliver a little bit more than that. So they have certain needs. We know what the needs are for digital experts, for instance. So we have invited all the fields actually in forensic science there's a digital component more and more attached to it. So we've invited the top experts in the world to come and talk about digital forensics here. And so, yeah, so we are giving people not only what they want, but we have surprised them with the caliber of forensic science experts, top of their fields, that are here for the conference.
Yes, the Africa Forensic Science Academy has been established just recently, but in terms of growth, there's also working with other academies that have been there for long enough, so that you can also have the experience that is needed to provide good services. How are you working, or how do you plan on working with other academies that do forensic science in delivering justice to make sure that this is sustainable?
Yes. I absolutely love the word sustainable, because if you don't do something and it's not sustainable, then why do it? If you don't, it takes longer time to do it. So to talk about the other academies. So from day one, we decided that yes, we are new on the block, but we want to be networked not only within Africa, which is our key focus, but we are linked currently to the American Academy of Forensic Science, and actually their president is attending as a keynote. I attended also many of their conferences. I'm a member of them. So before we had our own academy, I was a member there. And they are currently, the American Academy has sent formally what they call an IAOP, an International Education and Outreach Program, where they come to a country, one country a year, where they go and see what forensic science is about in that country. They want to experience the culture. They are currently at the Genocide Memorial. So this morning they had a tour of Kigali. They will also go some shopping for Kitenge cloths. But so that is the American Academy. We have very, very good relationships with them. The European Academy we have a relationship, but it's very thin. We could do better. We will next year be present at one of their conferences, but we have at least reached out. Then to the Australian Academy, we have very, very strong ties there via Professor Claude Roux, who is an academic journalist. He was one of the authors of the Sydney Declaration. He was actually a founding member of AFSA, and it's an interesting story because he was at the time president of the International Association of Forensic Science. So countries have their own forensic science academies or bodies, then the continents have it or regions have it, and then it is IAFS at the top of all of that. It's the only international body. So Claude Roux was, Professor Roux was then the president of IAFS when I contacted him and said, I have looked at the IAFS record, and I see they've done conferences in every continent except Africa. May I just ask why? You can ask a question. And he immediately got to why I'm asking, and then said, okay, what are you planning? And I said, we are planning a founding meeting. If we invite you to come and talk about the Sydney Declaration, which is our definition of forensic science, would you come? So IAF's presidents never come to Africa. So he said yes, and he arrived, and then became a founding member of AFSA because he was literally present. He's the only international person, non-African. And so he is currently also the vice president of the Australian New Zealand Forensic Science Society. And so the Asian Forensic Science Society, they operate a little bit different, but we're also connected to them. Also the South American group. So we have really worked hard in the past couple of months to really establish us on the world scene, to say, I want to again quote His Excellence, your president, who said, and I'm paraphrasing now, I can't recall the exact quote, but he said, why are we looking for others to come and help us? He says, as Africans, we say, this is now my decade. This is my century. And his question was, when was it not our century? When was it not our decade? But his most important question then was, if we say this is our decade, what are we going to do with it? And so that's very much the spirit of AFSA. If we say we're going to do this academy, what are we going to do with it? If it's just going to be another, nice place to go to for a conference every now and then, we are not interested. We want to make a significant change in the landscape, so the ecosystem of forensic sciences in Africa.
So about African Forensic Science Academy, in Rwanda we have the RFI, the Rwanda Institute, Rwanda Forensic Institute. How many forensic institutes or forensic laboratories that you're working with currently in Africa, and how do you plan on working with other African countries that are still behind in these practices so that they can improve forensic sciences in their countries?
So that's in fact one of the challenges in Africa. The practice in forensic science in the field itself is discrepant. We are not all practicing at the same level. Some more, the lab just started, some are very established labs. So that's the one thing. But also the professionals in the countries haven't always come together and formed their own academies. So we dream of an Africa where AFSA is where other countries' academies are affiliated to AFSA, because we can network within AFSA. So how many laboratories we're working with, that is a very good question to which I don't have the answer. I should have. I haven't counted them. As a forensic scientist, I'm admitting on air I haven't counted them, but I simply don't have the answer. But we are targeting every country, and which is also why I think that continental-wide survey that I keep on mentioning is so critical, because we actually don't know who is doing what, and we don't know how organized they are. I recently heard, a year ago, that in Ghana there's a young group of forensic scientists who are extremely organized. So we didn't know about them, now we do. And so we need to unearth all the gems around Africa so that we can know where should we go next, so that we together as Africans can grow and also, start talking to bodies that share our common interests. The African Union doesn't have a voice, we don't have a voice there, etc. Yes,
you just tackled one of the challenges that you're facing as forensic scientists, but also, even if the academy is months old, what are some of the challenges that you are facing currently and that are broadly in this sector of forensic science in Africa?
Yeah. So there are a few challenges, like with any other professional sector. In forensic science in particular, because crime doesn't wait for anybody, the criminals are unfortunately very prolific and active, we don't often get time to devote our time to research or academic endeavors in forensic science. We are so service focused. So that is why the RFI is taking the lead in making it an institute, and then we'll do that. So it is key for us to make sure that whatever is done is disseminated. And now you will have to remind me about the second part of your question.
I was speaking about the challenges.
Yeah, so the challenges.
Working to address those challenges.
So thank you. So that is the discrepant practice. The other challenge, which I already mentioned, is that we are not networked. Other challenges are that our education and training programs are not linked. Also, that we don't know what other forensic scientists in all the countries need, because the needs differ. Dare I also say, one of the challenges is language. We should acknowledge it and say, what plan are we going to make? Again, the administrator of AFSA, Christian Mugabu, who's a younger generation, not my grey generation, said, no, if we write the website in English, he can do, I don't know what it's called, the digital people will forgive me, I will call it a plugin. So AFSA's main language is English, then French, then Swahili, then Portuguese, sorry, I have this wrong. English, French, Swahili, yes, Portuguese. So we have to, Arabic before Portuguese. So we have to make sure that we can at least understand each other.
Yes.
So I unfortunately am language disadvantaged, so I speak English and one other useless language. My own country's people will stone me for it, but then our vice president speaks English, French and Arabic, which are the main, not to say Swahili is not a main language, not to say any of the others are not main, but those are our targets. So our conference, for instance, is in English, but there are people who submitted abstracts in French, and they will probably speak in French, but they will have the slides in English. So these are challenges that we are facing. Google Translate is good, because if somebody emails me, I can translate it and email them back. It's not perfect language. So the language barrier, we believe, can be solved with AI technology or digital technology. Other barriers are that people think this mindset that I need more money to do more. It's, in some cases, absolutely valid and true. Most of the time, though, there are resources that are not used effectively. So if we sit with two countries next to each other, and the one is very good in DNA and the one is very good in digital, then why are we not helping each other out? Instead of saying the one country that's very good with ballistics is not good with digital and therefore lag behind in digital. We should fill that gap, that challenge. I won't go into detail about all the challenges. Any academy starting up just within the house has many challenges. Our field has specific challenges. As I said, one of the challenges is that we don't realize we should speak to the press. There was also a time in my career when my comment was always no comment to an interview. Now, because we testify in court, we just say yes, and if it's a great interview, it's wonderful, and if it's not, we hope somebody got a point across. So that's also the thing. And then one of the challenges that in AFSA that we've identified, and as I already mentioned, is mental health. Due to the type of practice that we do, due to the type of work that we do, practitioners over time develop mental health needs and challenges and really strenuous stress on themselves. So we are teaching, we are trying to educate the younger generation to say, if you embark on this profession, also have a mental health plan. Not only a career plan, but your career plan should include mental health. And when I spoke to the Minister of Justice of Rwanda, he applauded that because he said they see the same in the legal profession. So these are all things that we want to address.
Yeah, we are almost coming to an end of our beautiful discussion, unfortunately, but I believe that it is going to be fruitful and very helpful to people who are listening, just following us. Let me come back to the AFSA as an academy. It's the first conference that you're holding, but what are some of the expectations that you have? Yes, it's months old, but you do have expectations in this upcoming conference. What are those expectations?
So in the upcoming conference, we are currently operating with this interim executive for 2 years. So in the upcoming conference, our constitution will be voted on and addendums will be made so that it is truly magnificent for us and sustainable and so on. And also the very first board of AFSA will be elected, so the permanent board for the next 3 years. So we are now working with the interim executive, of which I'm the president, but the next group of people will be the board. The voting ended last Friday, and we will announce it at the AGM coming up. So for the members of AFSA, this is a huge opportunity to meet each other, because they all sign up from 54 countries, but they've never met face to face. So this for us is critical. And then we realized we should have had more online people, more online events, and introduce our members to each other, which we have now undertaken to do. So yes, we have expectations of the week. I also have to just acknowledge that the 5 people on the interim executive is myself, Professor Mehdi Ben Khalel, who's the vice president, he's from Tunisia. Ms. Carolina Wantegi, she's from the RFI. She's the General Secretary. Mr. Peter Paul is from Botswana, he's the Treasurer. And then Dr. Liam Robinson, who is the Communication Secretary. So these 5 people have taken up AFSA as far as we could in 2 years, and we are now ready to hand over to the next board.
Before we wind up this show, I would like to know if you have some of the insights that you would like to share before we close that we didn't speak about in this whole discussion.
I think we touched on a lot of the issues, but I think I do want to mention that AFSA exists to represent forensic science professionals. And if we do not represent their needs or what is best for them, AFSA should actually not exist. So maybe that's surprising for people to hear. But if AFSA is not sustainable, if it's not helpful, any of that, we should not have it. What is important for me is that as often the only African in the room at the international conference, I looked around and I said, okay, so as an African, what am I going to do? You know, one person cannot drive a field to a tipping point, but you talk to like-minded people, and then let's put action to the words. Let's not keep on talking about what we need in Africa, what we should do in Africa, what we are planning to do, but let's actually start to do that.
Thank you very much for the insights, and that brings us to the end of this discussion on the African Forensic Sciences Academy Inaugural Conference, and also with the collective efforts of forensic practitioners and justice professionals. This event promises to reshape Africa's forensic landscape, aiming for excellence, integrity, and innovation in serving justice. And for you who is following our TV right now, thank you for tuning in, and we hope to see you next time on another episode of 360 Degrees. Joining us was Antonelle Olkaz, AFSA President. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having us and helping us to spread the word about AFSA.
Thank you, and we wish you a fruitful and liberate conference.
Thank you very much.